So there's a huge story that went mega viral online, particularly in right-wing circles. The New York Post ran it. The title was, "Homeless veterans are being booted from New York hotels to make room for migrants." Now that's a pretty spicy story, isn't it? Our own veterans who served this country, who are now homeless, they were booted from hotels to make room for these illegal alien foreign invaders. This is what they want you to believe. This was the meat of the article. Well, Fox News, it was yummy in my tummy. It was party time over there when they saw this. On right-wing Twitter, party time over there when they saw this. Like, yes, our narrative has been bolstered, yes. Well, guess what? Come to find out, the story was absolutely, positively, 100% without a doubt, made up. It was totally made up. Completely made up. Astonishingly made up. There's not an ounce, there's not a tiny grain of sand of truth as part of this story. So Mediaite breaks it down here for us. Homeless vet story, eaten up by Fox News, turns out to be spectacularly false. That's their words, not mine. Spectacularly false. The New York Post dropped a bombshell report last week amid a nationwide influx of migrants. Nearly 24 homeless veterans were kicked out of hotels where they were being temporarily housed in order to make room for migrants in upstate New York. The story, which was based on a claim by a veterans advocate, got the front page treatment. "Vets kicked out for migrants," bellowed the Post last Saturday. "Outrage as upstate hotels tell 20 homeless veterans to leave." It was a juicy story that could have been cooked up in Roger Ailes' Rage Fear Lab. Red-blooded American veterans put out on the street to make way for foreign invaders. The story rocketed around the right-wing ecosystem. The New York Post columnist Miranda Devine said President Joe Biden should burn in hell for this. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy called it shameful. Donald Trump Jr. declared, and I quote, "Fuck Democrats." Nikki Haley said the tale was liberal insanity at work. Naturally, Fox News covered the story enthusiastically, treating it as gospel on nearly every program. On Outnumbered, one of Fox's most popular daytime programs, hosts pinned blame for the very local story on Biden. "It proves he doesn't mean it when he says, 'God bless the troops.'" At the end of his speeches, one host said, "Why is Joe Biden doing this?" Another asked, "Because it is intentional. He is a globalist. He's more concerned about the needs of the UN, about the World Economic Forum, than he is about his own American citizens." Are we talking about the same Joe Biden here? The Joe Biden who is still deporting massive numbers of people? The Joe Biden who kept into place for most of his time in office Title 42, the pandemic-era policy, which just kicks people out with no due process, remain in Mexico, a Trump-era policy? Are we talking about the same Joe Biden? Joe Biden, who was the VP for Obama, who was called the deporter-in-chief because he broke deportation records. Are we talking about the same Joe Biden? Then, the story fell apart. First, the hotels that veterans were supposedly booted from told Mid-Hudson News they had no idea what the advocate, YIT Foundation, YIT Foundation Executive Director Sharon Finch was talking about. Then, a local Republican New York lawmaker dug into her claims and concluded that she lied. She lied. Now, they go into some of the specifics of how the story fell apart. So, what this woman did is she went to a homeless shelter. And she picked a bunch of the homeless folks. She said, "Come with me." Took them to a diner, said, "Go ahead, eat like kings. Order whatever you want, drink whatever you want. Go ahead. Don't worry about it. We're going to pick up the bill." So these homeless folks said, "Okay, let's go ahead and do that. Let's do that." Can't blame them, right? Can't blame them. They're homeless. They're desperate. Here comes somebody helping you out. After the meal, she pulled them all aside and said, "Look, there are some strings attached to what just went down here. What I need you to do is I need you to pretend like you're a homeless veteran and you were just kicked out of this hotel to make room for migrants. I need you to make it up. And if you have an issue, if you have an ethical or moral issue with doing this, when the media asks you questions, you could just turn around and say, 'Hey, I'm too traumatized to talk about this further. I'm too traumatized.'" And a lot of these folks, maybe even all of them, not exactly sure, they were like, "Okay, we're going to do what we got to do because we're just out here trying to survive. so we'll go along with this story. But the hotel workers, I mean, how did she think this was going to work? The hotel workers were like, we have no idea what you're talking about. When media outlets reached out to them to try to verify the story, they're like, this didn't happen at all. We have no idea what you're talking about. So even Republican New York lawmakers are like, what are you doing? You're undermining our cause. I'm out here trying to actually help homeless veterans, and here you are making up a story to further a narrative which just exposes you as an unserious liar, tribal goon. That's what you are. All the different Fox News shows picked up on this immediately, ran with it at 1,000 miles an hour. Why? Because they don't use skepticism when it fits the narrative. They'll just shut their brain off. It's Pavlovian, right? They're like clapping seals. Democrats buying. Democrats buying. Do buying things. Democrats buying. So they spent a lot of time talking about this story, hyping it up, getting their audience worked up into a frothing, seething outrage. And then we have some corrections for you. So even Fox News couldn't let this one hang out there because the story had blown up so phenomenally that they had to do something, right? So here's Laura Ingraham. After covering the story, being outraged by the story, here's what she says.
All right, before we go, a little update on a story we brought you this week about homeless vets being displaced from hotels so that illegals could move in. Turns out the group behind the claim made it up. We have no clue as to why anyone would do such a thing, but we'll bring you any updates should they come.
Oh, you know exactly why somebody would do such a thing. It's the same reason you jumped to cover it. Because they are trying to fit a narrative. Immigrants bad, homeless veterans good, Joe Biden doesn't care about Americans, but he cares about foreigners. A narrative that is so immensely absurd if you care at all about evidence, even the tiniest bit. Even the tiniest bit. But so this was one correction. By the way, how long was the original segment that Laura Ingraham covered it? I don't know. I'm asking. 5 minutes? 6 minutes? Did you do a rant on it and then bring on a guest to talk about, oh, yeah, this is terrible, bad, evil. Republicans good, Democrats bad. And it was 20 seconds to be like, well, there's maybe some issues with it, just a little bit, un poquito issue with it. So I got one more awesome Fox News correction for you. This is I believe this was their first admission.
Quick update on a story from earlier this week about homeless veterans being displaced from a hotel in Newburgh, New York, to make room for migrants. We're now looking into new reports that a veterans advocate misled lawmakers and media outlets about a story that some homeless men may have been hired to pose as veterans. We've reached out to the organization for a statement, but so far have not heard back. We'll send it back to you.
Yeah, there's enough chaos with that potentially false stories running around out there. Nate Foy for us with an update. Nate, thank you. Sandra?
You got it.
I like how they brought out, first of all, I've never seen this guy before in my life. Never seen him before. I'm familiar with all the Fox News hosts, all the guests, all the commentators, right? Never seen this guy before in my life. They brought out what is basically an AI-generated newsman to give a milquetoast, mealy-mouthed, tail between the legs. Well, yeah, they are responsible. They did the thing. The story may not be true. Come on, man. Come on. Look, I get it that every now and then you're going to mess up, right? I get that. But let's understand something. In this instance, of course, because it suited the narrative, they ran with it at 1,000 miles an hour. And everybody in media, I don't care if you're in right-wing media, left-wing media, radical centrist media, whatever. The facts have to come first, dude. The facts have to come first. And what's a damn shame is that, you got less than a minute total coverage saying, okay, this appears to be wrong and made up. When, I don't know, how much time did they dedicate to spreading the story originally? With all of their trademark outrage and tribalism. Did they cover it for 20 minutes? 30 minutes? Caught red-handed spreading fake news. Caught red-handed spreading fake news. Now, I'm not out here saying CNN is good, MSNBC is good. They got their own conspiracies. You know, they were spreading Russiagate at the top of their lungs for years and years and years. All these outlets cheerlead for every single war that we have. But this is why people, I mean, in no way, shape, or form should you trust any of these outlets. You shouldn't do it. Because, you know what? At the very least, if you're going to push this story, let's be a little more serious in then debunking it when it's proven to be an outright lie. Give me at least 5 minutes. Bring up the players involved. Give me the specifics, how they did it, why they did it, why this is a problem. None of that. None of that also. How many people saw the original segments and then they won't see the less than a minute of time in corrections? I don't know. But I venture to guess that number's at the very least in the hundreds of thousands, probably over 1 million. Disgraceful. But I wouldn't expect anything else from Fox News. Hey, y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop. And watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.